Hiya, it's Sarah, and today I'm going to be talking about Franz Kafka's Amerika. Now, I have to admit, when it comes to Kafka, I struggle somewhat. He's a brilliant writer, there's no denying that. He writes beautifully. I just never know what's going on. I've mainly read just small stories, and with the exception of Metamorphosis, what I highly recommend, and I think you should all go out and read right away, his other stories, I have no clue. It doesn't help that a lot of them is like missing pages and never finished and stuff, and that's, the same with this book. This doesn't have an ending. But I just feel like there's this world of people who speak so highly of Kafka, and they know all about it and the inner workings and everything, and I just feel like I'm on the outside, but what does it mean? So if I could just have someone stood over me while I'm reading, pointing out paragraphs saying, and this is the philosophical reason behind this statement, and that would be handy. But unfortunately it's just me reading these books, and they do leave me feeling a little bit clueless. This book is a little different from his others, as it's actually described as being his most positive work. I have to agree, it is, for Kafka, quite light-hearted, but if you're looking for a jolly story with a happy ending, you really have come to the wrong place. And like I said earlier, this book doesn't even have an ending, though it does have notes by one of his friends, who they had spoke before his death about how this book was going to end. So there's some ideas of what he wanted it to be, but how he was going to get to that from how it actually ends, I have no idea. Another point in this book that had me thoroughly confused is when he gets a letter from his uncle. Now, I'm not going to say what this letter is about because it will be a bit of a spoiler, but I think I'm not ruining it for anyone if I just sort of point out that this letter is nuts and his uncle is just crazy for sending it. But what's really annoying is that no one seems to think this is a weird thing. Not his friends, not Carl himself even. They just take what's in the letter and just be like, oh, okay then. But really, it is mental. I had to put the book down. I was just like, I don't understand where this has come from and why his uncle would send such a letter. But that kind of sets off a chain reaction there on from how he goes on to have these sort of adventures, and he ends up meeting some quite unsavoury characters in the book, but every time he does fall on his feet, things change again because of these people come back. But again, I just felt like if he had just told him to go away, he wouldn't have had these problems, but I suppose there would have been no story then. I felt just as the book was kind of warming up for me, it ended. It wasn't like the proper ending. It kind of it gets to one situation and he's in this flat with some people, and then it cuts to the last chapter, what is completely different, and it must at least be a few months into the future to a year, and it starts talking about people who I have no idea, they've not been mentioned in the story beforehand, so that's pretty confusing. I also felt that the last chapter had quite a different atmosphere to the rest of the book. It kind of felt more dreamlike, if that's, it really didn't seem like it was, although it had the same character, it just didn't feel like it was the same story. This is actually my boyfriend's book, and he had warned me I wasn't going to like the ending. But it wasn't so much that I disliked it, it was just, I didn't know what was going on. To sum up, I enjoyed the writing style. It was enough I wanted to know what kept happening to him, so I read this pretty much within a day and a half. It was enough to draw me in. I did want to know. But, there was a lot I found frustrating with this book, and just generally just didn't like Carl, so that's not helpful. But I do think this is definitely worth a read. I don't know if this sort of is a fair example of Kafka's work. I think this is maybe a little different from his usual stuff, but I haven't read enough to make that assessment properly. But if you're going to start with Kafka, definitely start with Metamorphosis instead. I think I gave this about 3 out of 5 stars. So not bad, but You know, for a book that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, I knew I was going to have struggle with, I was pleasantly surprised that it was as readable and accessible as it was. Just the character, just incredibly frustrating. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll have more reviews in the future.